Okay, so one of the biggest dominoes that was to fall this offseason has in fact fallen. Myles Garrett staying with the Cleveland Browns. He signs a massive extension. So a lot to get into here on the eve of the legal tampering period. Legal tampering period starts tomorrow. So we'll get some some free agent moves and things like that tomorrow, but big trade, or not big trade, big re-signing happens here. So Myles Garrett, who had requested a trade, which was kind of a big shock, but it also made sense given how Cleveland had kind of been coming off of a year where they were the second worst team in football. He, says he wants to be traded. The Browns were very adamant about not wanting to trade him, and ultimately they worked for an extension. So the extension itself, a 6-year deal, $40 million a year. This is over $200 million. Currently there's also a no trade clause thrown in there. So, and $122 million of it is guaranteed. So they are essentially going with the logic of, if you can get a Myles Garrett on your roster, you don't let that player leave your roster, which I can understand the logic behind to some degree. I think the question that has to be mentioned is, with some of the potential offers that were out there, and who knows what they could have gotten. Maybe if maybe no team was willing to give 2 first-round picks, and maybe if they were going to get that offer, they would have accepted it. But given the fact that they're paying him this amount of money, which again is by far and away the most a non-quarterback has made. The previous highest was, I believe, unless I'm missing anybody, was Myles Garrett, or excuse me, was Max Crosby earlier this offseason, who, Nick Bosa set the edge rusher market earlier with getting $34 million a year. Usually you want to kind of, if you're the edge rusher hitting the market, go a little bit more than that. That's what Crosby did. He got $35.5 million a year. This is $40 million a year. So, I mean, it's a huge deal. It is. And if you're willing to pay him this much money, probably you weren't going to be willing to trade him either, which is, again, the Browns front office, every time they were asked about it, said, we're not trading him. That's not happening. So, again, a player like Myles Garrett does not come around too often. Getting a player who has been a top 3 edge rusher in football, if not 2 or 1 edge rusher in football since he's entered the league, to be able to keep him, I do understand the logic. I think for the Cleveland Browns, though, it's just one of those things, and teams don't love to do this, but I think they might be better off sometimes getting rid of a player and just hoping to be better in the future, right? Trading him for draft capital, because you're still paying Deshaun Watson for the next 2 seasons. That's just where you're at right now. So the way I see it, you're essentially not going to be competitive with him for the next 2 years. I think that, listen, sometimes things get weird, right? The Denver Broncos paying Russell Wilson a bunch of money, still made the playoffs with Bo Nix and his rookie deal. You do have the number 2 overall pick. Maybe you get a quarterback that can play well right away. Who knows what happens, right? But I think it's fair to say that this is a team that is in a deep rebuild and probably is more than just a quarterback away, probably has several pieces away. So, I mean, maybe you can try to be competitive by the 3rd season, but again, this is a 6-year deal, and you have to wonder if he does start to fall off. Now, it seems like kind of the past couple years of the deal you could get out of, so that is kind of how these long contracts work. But still, my gut reaction, just again, you're clicking on this video to hear my thoughts on this move. My gut reaction is, I think that this is a bit of a mistake. Is mistake the right word? I think I would have rather seen them make a trade here. And again, to be clear, it's a 4-year deal added on to what he's already going to be having. So he already has 2 years on his deal. It's 4 years added on to this. So that's how it totally works. So that's if the numbers weren't adding up, that explains it. But yeah, anyway, back to the thing. Yes, I feel like it's a bit of a. I feel like they should have made a move here. I feel like they should have made a trade here, just given where they're at. Now, I would also say, if the deal just wasn't there, if there wasn't a team willing to give you a big chunk of money to also pay Myles Garrett, or give you a big draft pick to also pay Myles Garrett, then maybe you just have to say, you know what, we're going to just keep him. I think that's probably better than taking a bad deal, because at the end of the day, hopefully you will be competitive in 3 years. He'll still be good in 3 years. Like, I get that logic. But yeah, I do wonder if a team, my guess is teams inquired. They said, hey, we'll give you 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. And they said, no, we're not doing it. We're not letting someone like Garrett leave. That's my guess. But that's total speculation. I don't know anything. But yeah, I mean, it's also interesting thinking about what this means for the free agency period that's about to come up, right? Because there's all these free agents on the market. Now Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are both on the market as at the edge rush position. You have Trey Hendrickson, who has reportedly been looking for a trade. So it does make you think a little bit. Maybe teams were kind of still holding out hope that Myles Garrett could become available. Now that he's not, maybe you see teams go after Josh Sweat a little bit more, right? Go after even Hassan Reddick a little bit more. There are players that they can go after, and I do wonder how this affects things moving forward. At the end of the day, I mean, listen. For a football team that, let's be honest, with the Cleveland Browns has not made a ton of decisions that have worked out. Some of the decisions I think were even smart decisions that just didn't work out. But quite frankly, they're in a bad spot right now. At least you can hold on to a star player. And the last thing you want is a Saquon Barkley thing where you let a star player go and then that star player, wins a Super Bowl somewhere else and everyone says you look like an idiot. At least you have that. And I would say for Cleveland, if you're asking me what's the best thing about this organization right now, it's Myles Garrett. So you could trade him, and again, sometimes that's what you have to do. And I think that's, like I said, that's the decision I probably would have made. But you also don't want to just let them go for nothing. And also, I mean, the business side of things has to come into play a little bit of, you need people to show up to Cleveland Browns games if you own the Cleveland Browns. I know we like to think that it's like Madden where, no one cares about the business side of things and they only care about winning, but that's just not true. And having a star player who, if the team isn't very good next year, he can play, then that's sometimes you got to keep that guy in the building business-wise, I suppose, as well. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, hey, what is a way to make sure that somebody is, a disgruntled employee is happy? Give them over $100 million. That'll usually do the trick. And that's seemingly what happened for Myles Garrett, who, hey, credit to him. I mean, he went from demanding a trade to now getting all this money. Again, if he plays out the contract, over $200 million, by far and away the biggest non-quarterback contract and one of the biggest contracts, period. I mean, that's Daniel Jones money, right? That's a lot of money here. The top tier quarterbacks are making not too much more than this. Mahomes is making $5 million a year more than what Garrett will make once the $40 million part kicks in. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. But those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.